Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Football Daily Weekly. Good to have you with us. Journalist Kristan Heneage is with us today, and Dave as well, making sense of the Champions League matches this week. We're going to be talking about PSG and Chelsea and Shakhtar Donetsk versus Bayern Munich. Gentlemen, PSG versus Chelsea. Kristan, I come to you first. It's a mouth-watering one.
It is. The two managers, Blanc and Mourinho, were together at Barcelona when Mourinho was the translator, Blanc was the defender. And I think it represents a huge opportunity for PSG, and particularly for Blanc, to show that actually he's worthy of this job, because there's a lot of dissenting voices in Paris at the minute.
Indeed there is. Dave, what are you thinking about this
I think PSG are struggling in the league. They drew at the weekend again. Zlatan obviously made a goal-scoring return to the side, but they've got Cavani out, they've got Lucas Moura out, they've got Sergio Aguero out. I think the biggest miss is Lucas Moura. I think he's explosive on the counter-attack. He can really, break teams down on the break, and I think that will be very important for the Champions League. The two games that PSG had against Barcelona were sort of quite open, and that would be quite nice to see, but you can just see Mourinho just killing the game.
Well, I was going to say, Kristan, that Mourinho, he knows how to play. He likes a 0-0 at home in the Champions League if he can get that, and then obviously the away goals count there. Do you think Mourinho will approach this one and just think, hang on a minute, Dave says they've got, he'll take what Dave said into account, I'm sure, because he watches the show, and think, let's just kill this tie off rather than let's go out and hammer them.
I almost think with the amount of players that are missing that Dave touched on, and Johan Cabaye as well, I think he might go with a bit more of a cavalier attitude. Funnily enough,
Mourinho?
His first game in the Champions League as Chelsea manager was against PSG, and it was a 3-0 win. I'd be tempted to think he'll approach it with that same kind of confidence in their ability, because I think they're looking good at the minute. I think they're looking very strong, and because of the absentees in the Paris Saint-Germain team, why not go for it? Why take that risk and perhaps lose 1-0 when you could comfortably put the tie to bed and win 2?
So you think, Kristan's saying that Mourinho might just be like, oh, well, hang on a minute, we're better than you, and go out and...
I think they could do that. I think that in the home leg, Chelsea, I think they potentially will play with Oscar like they have been doing, Oscar attacking midfield. But what will be interesting in the second leg is if they play Cesc Fabregas in that role. I think that'd be perfect. Play, the likes of John Obi Mikel or Ramirez next to Matic. Have a really solid base and let Fabregas just, combine with Diego Costa. They've combined so many times in the leagues for goals this season, so it'll be really interesting to see that if Mourinho changes his style a little bit.
Yeah, what about PSG at the back? Obviously you've got David Luiz there and Thiago Silva, Maxwell as well as handy fullback. Do you think they're looking decent, or are they a bit vulnerable at the back?
I'm sure Dave will make me look silly with stats.
Yeah.
I feel as if David Luiz still has a lot of the problems of Chelsea and arguably Benfica, that he's too cavalier, he's too eager to rush forward. And I read an interview actually with him this week about him talking about why he left Chelsea, that he didn't feel the same as he did when he was first at the club. And because of that, I just wonder if the occasion might get to him and he might want to be too imposing and make too much of an impact. And consequently, that's exactly the kind of flaw that Mourinho can exploit to devastate him.
Okay, chaps. Well, the Shakhtar Donetsk coming up against Bayern Munich. A lot of people fancy Bayern for this Champions League title. Dave, do we just see this as a formality, or foregone conclusion rather, with Bayern winning?
Potentially, but you've got Luis Adriano, the Champions League top scorer this season with 9 goals at Shakhtar.
There you go.
But there's obviously a bit of problems in the Ukraine at the moment, and that will potentially affect the players. So you can't really see anything past Bayern. They're going to dominate the ball. I think they will start to kick on this season with their performances. Obviously, winning 8-0 at the weekend. I think it's really going to kick on, and they could absolutely blast them out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, what you say, rightly so. I mean, Donetsk was always a tricky place for teams to go in the Champions League. But as you say, the problems in Ukraine do muddy that terribly. But just in footballing terms, I mean, Bayern are a superior side to Shakhtar, Kristan. And even though Shakhtar have had good results and whatnot in the Champions League in the last few years, can you see past Bayern winning this?
I can't, to be brief on it. I just think that on top of the supremacy that Bayern hold just because they are Bayern Munich, Shakhtar seems a very unstable situation. I mean, I noticed there was a couple of the foreign players that they loaned out for Facundo Ferreira, who has made no impact at Newcastle, hasn't even played a competitive game, played 2 in the pre-season, but nothing else. And because of that, I think that certainly in the group stages, perhaps there's a little bit less pressure on them to perform. But I just think against Bayern that there's no room for error. And I feel as if a group of players that they have with that South American flair, there's just not enough sort of solidity and cohesion amongst them to overtake a Bayern side.
To finish then, predictions. Let's have some predictions. Paris Saint-Germain are playing at home against Chelsea in the first leg, Dave. What do you think the score will be?
I'm going to go for 2-1 Paris Saint-Germain. Chelsea
Okay.
to get an away goal, but PSG potentially to turn it on.
Kristan?
I think 2-0 Chelsea. I think they'll wrap this up very quickly.
Really?
Yeah.
Two very differing results. I'm going to go in the middle and say 1-1, and then Chelsea will beat them at Stamford Bridge. So there, an array of results there. Good people. What about Shakhtar Bayern? How do we see that one going?
4-0 Bayern.
Really?
Yeah, it's going to be a hammering.
Right. Okay. Kristan?
Yeah, 5-0.
5-0.
I just think they're so dominant. As poor a side as Hamburg are and were at the weekend, I just think they're going to steamroll them. They're just so clinical.
Okay. I'm going to go 2-0. A little bit more conservative for Bayern, but still, it would be a good result. Well, there you are. There's our predictions and our preview of the Champions League games. Let us know in the comments below what you're thinking, and we'll see you next time.